report comes out, this from the U.S. Department of Energy and their intelligence agency, that the COVID-19 pandemic, surprise, surprise, the FBI came out with a similar finding of moderate confidence that the virus spread via a mishap from the Wuhan lab. The lab leak theory being the most likely theory now. And remember what was said about you. If you believed a theory like that, you were called a conspiracy theorist, unfounded, impossible.
The Energy Department now joins the FBI in saying that it likely spread via a mishap at the Chinese lab in Wuhan, which the United States, by the way, gave money to over the years. I think, was it $40 million, maybe more than that. So you have right now the Department of Energy, the FBI, and it's multi-agencies now saying likely source. Now, why is this important? It's important because ultimately the Chinese Communist Party should be held accountable for this. Look, I take it very personally because I lost a brother to COVID. So I think the Chinese Communist Party, from what I'm gathering, is the responsible party here. There's no question it came from China, no question they gave us misinformation.
But they all told us, from the specialist on down to the talking heads, that you were a conspiracy theorist to even consider that. You're not saying, by the way, we're not making the jump that they intentionally did this, which you could make that jump as well, if you'd like, since it's the Chinese Communist Party.
They intentionally hid data.
Oh, well,
and they would not let the World Health Organization in. Right. So they are responsible. The culpability issue is who is ultimately responsible for the havoc this caused and the deaths that it caused and the impact it had on our families and our kids and our grandkids in school. And at the end, it's the Chinese Communist Party. And now it looks like it was the lab in Wuhan, which is exactly what the initial thoughts were. Our government tried to suppress that. The media was complicit.
Rick Riddell is joining us. He is our senior advisor for foreign policy and national security. He was the acting director of national intelligence. I mean, Rick, just your overall first reaction to yet another agency within the intel world coming out and saying, you know what, it's likely this had nothing to do with the wet market and everything to do with the lab in China.
Look, they already said this. This is a very confusing mess right now. And I will say this: Jennifer Granholm, the Secretary of Energy, is politicizing intelligence. She needs to get a handle on her intelligence community. She needs to read the April 30th, 2020 intelligence community-wide assessment. It's clear in that assessment from April 30th, 2020, that the media totally ignored, that I negotiated this statement from all intelligence agencies. We had to change verbs. We had to change nouns. We had to change everything in order to get all intelligence agencies to sign off. And the intelligence community concluded that COVID started in Wuhan, either in the lab through a leak, which, by the way, they don't believe was on purpose. This is what the intelligence community said. So a mistake lab leak, or a lab animal somehow getting transmitted to a human. And there were differing opinions about whether or not that lab animal was eaten, whether someone touched it. But it all stemmed to the Wuhan lab, either a lab leak by mistake or a lab animal. This is what the intelligence community said on April 30th, 2020. Read the statement. It's still on the DNI website.
Think about the lives lost and the billions of dollars destroyed, not only here in the United States, but around the world. The Chinese Communist Party should be on the hook for that.
Yep.
There are mechanisms by which, you know this, you've litigated things much like this before at the ACLJ. I'm sure you guys are thinking about it now, too. So there are tools to do that, but it first and foremost takes a U.S. government that is prepared to do what I talked about in that tweet, which was lay out the evidence publicly, the things that we know about how this escaped from the lab. And so there is a compensation mechanism. There are tools that we can impose real costs on them. The Biden administration made an enormous mistake by re-entering the World Health Organization.
Yep.
The very international group designed to prevent pandemics that came out and said the Chinese are doing a great job. It seems like so long ago. They said, hey, Xi Jinping's doing a great job. Well, millions of people now have died as a result of the decisions that the Chinese Communist Party leadership made.
It's a horrible situation, and the government of China, which is the Chinese Communist Party, has to be held accountable to this.